Hey everyone, it's Dave from Orgone-Generator.com. Got a new video here for you. We're going to walk through part one of the three-part series that we post on the website. Part one, the series is on how to use an Orgone generator effectively. Part one is called How to Create Successful Manifestations, Life Energy, Structural Links, and Why Manifestations Fail. I'll link to the articles in the description box. So what I want to do is walk through the articles, make sure that we get the basics down. So some of this is going to be repetition just in audio and visual form, and hopefully provide additional context that we didn't include in the article. We could have provided a lot of context, a lot more information. Did about 10,000 words in these first two articles. Part 3 is going to come out before the end of the year. We'll shoot a video for that as well. I'm going to shoot a video for part 1, I'm going to shoot a video for part 2, and then once part 3 comes out, we'll shoot a video for that as well. So before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and feel free to do that. You can hit the subscribe button, then you'll get updates when we post new videos. We've got a lot planned for 2020. So you can do that. You can like the video if you enjoy it. And definitely feel free to comment. When you comment, we can talk with you. We read all the comments. And knowledge sharing is what this is all about. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, so this part 1 is called How to Create Successful Manifestations, Life Energy, Structural Links, and Why Manifestations Fail. And our goal in this article and in this whole series was to pull together basically the most effective tips and directions on how to use an Orgone generator. We've talked to a lot of different people. We've provided this information piecemeal to a lot of different people at a lot of different points, over email, in the live chat, over text, on phone calls, but we wanted to pull it all together in one place. The YouTube channel we have has a lot of good information. We probably got close to 50 videos at this point, and if you go through all the videos, regardless of device that's on screen, a lot of the stuff Nick says provides a lot of these directions, but not in a systematic, unified form. That's what we wanted to do here, was put it all in one place, put the directions of how to use an Orgone generator, and really dive into some of the bigger picture concepts and the context that we haven't covered as deeply. Earlier in the year, we published the complete guide to Orgone generators on the site. We're actually going to revise that a little bit and fill it out even more before the end of the year. But what we wanted to do was, if you want to know how to use an Orgone, your own device more effectively, you can read these articles. If you want to know what it looks like to use an Orgone generator effectively, you can look at these articles. So big picture considerations, practical steps. Part 2 is a step-by-step guide. So we wanted to pull it all together in one place and make it as useful as possible. So we've gotten great feedback on it. Honestly, we've been really shocked by the feedback. We've had people email, come in the live chat, send text messages, and it's been great. Some people have said, this article made me get one now that I really understand it. So I just got a new Orgone generator. Some people said, I had a generator and I liked it at first, but then I kind of stopped using it. These articles have really excited me to start using it again. I forgot how awesome this thing was. And that's great to see. And then the quality of questions that we get has gone up substantially, like overnight. We have people coming in, rather than saying, what does this do and how do I use it, people are suddenly coming with really higher level questions, like, I'm setting up an operation, I have multiple targets, I have multiple trends, how do I structure this operation? I'm like, wow, that's a really good question. So it seems like the article is really was really well received, and we've gotten a lot of traffic on it. It's been great. So that's exactly what we wanted to do. We just wanted something that was really useful for people, and that seems to be it seems like it is. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to talk about life force terminology. A lot of these concepts are simple, widely known, and not too hard to grasp. We use certain terminology throughout, and I'd like to talk about, make sure we understand it so that you can understand the deeper meanings and the deeper way to do things. So target is a very simple concept. In any manifestation, there is a target. If you want something for yourself, you are the target. right? And the thing you want is the trend. We'll get to that. If you want something for someone else, they are the target. And there's a lot of ways that you can frame a manifestation, and we'll talk about that more, especially in part 3, but in part 2 as well. But the only distinction I want to make right now, you see my my notepad here. If you are not, we talk about this in terms of a generator, but it would also be true in another manifestation. It's possible that you could manifest something for someone else just using your own life energy. Obviously, it works better with a generator. But a distinction between target and an operator. So if you want to manifest something for someone else and you're using a generator, that other person is the target and you are the operator of the generator. There's a few different ways you could probably, there's always ways that you could frame an operation, a manifestation. There's not one good way. And so this distinction can be helpful when you have, when the target is another person or multiple other people or an entity like a business. Making this distinction is useful, I think. So the target is just the person or the thing that you want something to happen for. And a target doesn't have to be a person. The easy example is yourself. Let's say you want a car. Well, you're the target, and the trend is get a car. Get the car I want. It could also be another living thing or object. Another person, that's easy. But let's say a plant. We get anecdotal stories that our generators help with plant growth, right? So you could run an operation on a plant to increase plant growth. Let's say a flower. You want your flower to bloom more and just be prettier. The target in that case would be the flower. All right. I'll give you another example of an operation I ran on an object. My computer is getting older. I'm on my computer a lot, and it started having errors on it. So I ran to the generator and I threw in a trend with the target as my computer, and I said, make it restart. That's number one, and make it work perfectly. And the computer worked. I'm not saying that the operation did that, but that's just an example. Computers made of metal and silicone and all that stuff. So that's an example of an object being the target. So really, like we said, the target is just whoever or whatever you want to create a desired result or outcome or effect for. Okay? Trend is the planned effect, the desired result, or the desired outcome of the manifestation. The trend is simply what you want to occur. Okay, it's the thing that you want. If you want a car, the trend is get the car, right? Plant growth, the trend is growth. The plant grows. The trend is the intention. That's another way to say it. We use the word trend because Carl uses it. It's a trend energy, we say, but it's basically what you want. So you choose a target, you choose a trend. So that's pretty simple to understand. All right, life energy. So this is a pretty broad topic, and we're actually going to do an article breaking down kind of the history of orgone and life energy. But life energy has been recognized by cultures throughout history and around the world. It's life energy that's always present, never destroyed. It's the fundamental essence of everything. Throughout the world, we've seen, chi, it's called chi, mana, ki, prana, elan vital, and via Wilhelm Reich, it's called orgone. So there's a lot of names for it, but I think most people are kind of aware that of this essential energy that has been, that imbues everything, that is the foundation of everything. And the important points about this are, and you probably have felt life energy before. You've probably felt chi before, whether or not you knew you were feeling it. I think most people at some point in their lives, they feel it flowing throughout themselves, and maybe after a workout, or after walking in nature, or after being around people who really put them in a positive place, that kind of flowing energy throughout your body. It's not just blood flow, we don't believe. We believe it's actually subtle energy, it's also called. We believe chi flowing throughout your body. Martial arts talk about chi a lot. So most people have probably experienced universal life energy inside themselves. Your own body generates it, living things generate it. So you've probably already experienced it. You might not have known what you were experiencing, but once you become aware of it, I think you learn to harness your own, and you learn what it feels like. So the important points about life energy are that we believe it transfers at any distance without loss if there are sufficient structural links. So what does that mean? Transfers at any distance means it doesn't matter where you are. That life force can travel across great distances almost instantly without losing energy. Just to illustrate the point, the first time I ever used a generator, or I had a generator used on me, Nick turned a generator on me, turned an ATG-12 on me. I was in Asia and he was in the United States, and I felt it within minutes. Now, I'm not saying I could scientifically prove that I felt it, but I felt it strongly within 3 to 5 minutes or so. And I felt it even stronger over the next 20 minutes. And I felt it even stronger over the next 3 hours. And then for about 3 days, I got that initial Orgone glow, which we talk about and other people also describe, where for the first time you're getting hit with concentrated life energy. And for me, it felt great. It was really eye-opening, and it was a really, an important experience and a life-changing experience. But because I didn't have the generator anywhere near me, so just by targeting me with an operation, and with multiple operations really, in a powerful generator, though it wouldn't necessarily need to be powerful, but it was. That makes it probably increases the feel of it, and the speed at which you feel it hitting you. But it transferred, across the world, literally on the other side of the world. Because, the way it can do that, we believe, is that Orgone life energy does not work in normal space and time. It works in another dimension. We're not fully sure what that dimension is. It could be working at the quantum level. But we believe it works in another dimension beyond space and time. If you look at Carl's old websites, Carl's company name, he talks about hyperspace. Hyperspace is an area where it's not bound by space and time. So it's transferring. It might not have gone around the world. It might not have gone through the world, but it did transfer from the generator to the target, which was me, almost instantly without loss. So that's an important point. That means that you can stay connected to your generator, with the right target link for yourself. You or someone else can stay connected and be influenced by the energy from your generator, regardless of where you are. Even if you're on the, we believe, even if you're on the other side of the universe. But in the world, like I said, Asia and the U.S., you can't get too much farther apart than that. So, and second important point, we believe you can consciously direct and control the life energy produced by one of our generators. And that is one of, I think, Carl's big advancements with life energy technology. We think Carl has 3, and probably more, but at least 3 really big advancements with life energy technology. Number 1, he figured out, previously, let's use Reich as an example. Reich figured out how to create orgone accumulators, orgone attractors, where orgone would be ambient orgone. Orgone in the surrounding environment would be attracted, concentrated, and just passed on to whoever was in an accumulator or nearby. Kind of a passive process, right? So it accumulates and then passes it on. And that was a big step. Carl took that same idea and reduced it to this. We say that Orgonite is a more powerful and a smaller orgone accumulator. This attracts and concentrates life energy by itself away from the generator. With all technology, you can imagine a computer in the 1980s and your smartphone now. The smartphone is much smaller and more powerful. Kind of the same concept with Orgonite. So that's one big advancement, is taking existing technology, making it better, and making it smaller. So that's number one. Number two, we believe Carl figured out how to generate orgone versus just accumulate it. That's a really big advancement. We call it a quantum leap over just accumulating it. Generating versus accumulating is a huge advancement. And basically what's inside. So this device itself is made of orgonite, and it's got wiring inside that sends an electromagnetic pulse into the orgonite. We believe that process, and the wiring is a special type. It's proprietary. We don't tell people how to do that, and that we believe that process generates orgone versus just accumulating it. So generating versus accumulating, that's the second advancement that Carl provided. And the third, and this is pretty important, and this is where it comes in with where I said that we believe that someone can consciously direct and control the energy generated by the device. That idea, the idea that you can direct life energy, that you can project life energy, that is a huge advancement. And that is actually based less on science and probably more on Carl's study into more esoteric practices, magic, occult. As a young man, Carl studied a lot of this sort of stuff. Not just the science, but a lot of things that adjacent to it. And we'll talk about later in this video how a lot of ritual and religion and magic is actually fairly practical, at least the way they approach it. We're not going to say it works, but the structure is basically this structure for a lot of things. And so the idea that not only could you, that you can accumulate life energy, great. You can generate life energy, even better. You can generate life energy and direct it. Those are some big steps, and Carl's responsible for figuring out, for taking some things from a lot of different practices, fusing them together, and having the technical capability to actually create a generator. It's great to know the stuff, but to be able to put it in, to reduce it to practice, it's pretty incredible. So yeah, life energy, getting back to it, it can transfer to any distance without loss of energy, and it can be directed by the operator. Now, with an orgone accumulator, let's say that I've got a bunch of orgonite, and I'm just accumulating life energy, no generator. Since there's a bunch of life energy, that I could pull it from that and direct that, right? If it can be directed from a generator, it can be directed from anywhere, like yourself, nature, if it's in a concentrated form. So, but to have the generator producing a constant stream of concentrated life energy is a huge benefit, as we say in the article. So, and the biggest thing for manifestation is that we believe the presence or absence of sufficient life energy is the number one reason why manifestations fail. If you look at this, and there's a lot of ways to draw this. We have a picture on the article that Carl made. We're actually updating a few pictures, so we're going to add those later. But this is basically the structure of a manifestation, right? So you've got the target of the manifestation, what you want to occur, the trend, and then the life energy to power the manifestation. So without the life energy, it's basically wanting something. Imagine wanting something once and then you don't think about it again. That's basically, no life energy is being put in that desire. It's a fleeting desire. So the life energy is the engine of a manifestation. It's what powers it. And tie that into a structural link. So the next thing we talk about is a structural link. A structural link, kind of awkward wording. It's like trend. It's a little formal. But it's basically an energetic link. If you want to just think energetic link, if that's easier. Energetic connection, energetic tether, right? A line. A structural link is basically something that represents a target or a trend. And it functions as, they take a lot of different forms. It basically functions as the bridge or the power line for the life energy to travel across and do its thing. between the target and the trend. So the bridge or the power line, I think that's a good analogy, and that's what connects the target to the trend, and the life energy moves across the structural link to draw the trend to the target. There's a few ways to say it, but that's the basic idea. So there's a couple different types of structural links, as we say in the article. An identical structural link, that's something that's an exact replica, an exact match of the target or the trend. The easy example is for yourself, and we say this in part 2. To create an identical structural link, like an identical target link for yourself, you just need a piece, something that contains your genetic code, your DNA. So a note with your hair taped onto it is an easy example. And if you went down to that generator, you would see my target link, and it's exactly that. It's my name, it's my birthday, and it has my hair on it. So, and it just taped, easy. So that's an example of an identical structural link. An equivalent structural link is anything that represents the target or the trend. So, tons of options there. You could use, for yourself, you could use a recent photograph, you could use a piece of your clothing, you could use a painting of yourself, you could really use anything that represents you, right? Because there's the energetic connection between it and you. As long as it represents, and the intent of the operator does matter to an extent. So, the more, if it's not an identical structural link, the more that something represents a target or trend to the operator, the energetic connection is strengthened, right? And you can even have just a mental structural link. That's a little more advanced, and we're going to talk about that in depth in part 3. But a clear mental projection of something, that's an energetic connection. And that's the easiest version, possibly. It's you don't need anything else for it, but getting a clear mental image is actually, if you've ever tried to do it and been honest about it, it can be a challenge. But so we have identical structural links and we have equivalent structural links. In theory, they should function the same. In theory, an identical structural link should function the same as an equivalent structural link. And funny enough, the first time I used a generator, in that case, Nick did not have an identical structural link for me. Like I said, the generator was in the US, I was in Asia. I felt it strongly within a few minutes. And he used a picture of me. And he knows me pretty well. We know each other. He knows the sound of my voice. He knows my expressions. When you look at another human, you can kind of see their essence. Even a camera, in a lot of cases, like a photograph, will show you the underlying essence of a person. But the better that you know someone, and the more experience you have around them, the better you can envision them. That can help strengthen an energetic connection for purposes of operating a generator. So Nick did not have an identical structural link for me, so we used an equivalent structural link. And I imagine he used that photograph, and also kind of the mental image of me and his mental emotional experience of me to make the connection. And like I said, I felt it in minutes, and I felt it very strongly. So in theory, an identical structural link and an equivalent structural link should work the same. We recommend going with an identical structural link whenever you can. It can be tough. For yourself, you can definitely do it. Like I said, take a piece of hair, a fingernail clipping, something containing your DNA. That will do it. For a pet, I have a structural link for my dog in here. Just cut a piece of her fur. Simple as that. But it might be tough to get an identical structural link for every target you want. For loved ones, if they're not freaked out, you can tell them, give me a piece of your hair. If for a trend, you can also get an identical structural link for a trend. It's a little, you have to think of examples. Nick brought up an example of, I believe, like an essential oil after a ceremony. Certain types of religious ceremonies or spiritual ceremonies, they'll give you an essential oil as like a energetic connection to the ceremony you just did and the result you just got. So that would be an example. But in general, for us, in my own generator, I've got identical target links, identical structural links, that are target links for myself and for my dog. But all my trend links are a combination of written intentions, and then I do some other stuff with the dials, and I'll talk about that in part 3. So that's basically what you can do. We give examples of target links you can use and examples of trend links you can use. So let's see. Yeah, what all structural links have in common is that they create an energetic connection with a target or trend. And like I said, a good analogy is bridge or power line that the life energy can move over. And a target link, simple, it's a structural link representing the target. Trend link, structural link representing the trend, right? And a good, like we said, life energy can transfer at any distance, assuming that there is sufficient structural links. So we believe that life, the number one reason a manifestation fails is a lack of adequate life energy. However, you also have to have adequate structural links. Now, don't get crazy with that. We definitely think it's more life energy than the structural links, but you want to create a good target link if you can. Like I said, it could be a mental projection. You want to create a good target link. You want to create a good trend link, but a lot of people probably do that in their own manifestations without a generator. If you're visualizing, your car, the car you want, or the results you want, that's basically a target link or a trend link. So that could be sufficient with enough life energy. So while it is important to have a good enough target link and a good enough trend link, it can be tough to kind of make the distinction, but life energy is what we think is the number one reason. If you have enough, the manifestation can succeed easily, quickly, and more fully. And if you don't have enough, then the manifestation is destined to fail. Operation. So operation is very simple. This is basically another name for manifestation. And remember that the important equation that we talk about, target plus trend plus life energy equals operation. But when you read operation, you can basically think manifestation. So, and I've got some fun examples of operations that you may not have thought about later in the video. We're going to go through those because I think the operation equation, target plus trend plus life energy, is, like I said, like we say in the article, when you internalize it, you start seeing it everywhere. And we believe that cultures and various practices throughout history have used that basic equation. That's kind of where we're getting it from. That's where Carl got it from. So there are common principles to all these things that they help make sense of a lot of pretty disparate practices and rituals. And I'll talk about a few examples. Action at a distance. This basically means create a manifestation. Action at a distance. Just break down the words. Action, so something occurs at a distance, outside of yourself. Implied in that is that the action occurs without you doing anything, right? Without you doing anything physically, right? So the idea of like mentally or non-physically creating action outside of yourself. That's where that comes. Kind of a radionics term, but you see it around, so we decided to say what it means, but it basically means create a manifestation. All right, so the basic elements of manifestation, with the operation definition, we've kind of already talked about it, but you need a target, a trend, and life energy. That's the basic elements of a manifestation. And at the root of all manifestation efforts is the process of creating an energetic connection with the target and the trend, and bringing them together using life energy. That's one way to say it. And I like to use the example, I use this in the article, visualization. Think about that. Use the car example. You want a new car, so a a law of attraction guru might tell you to visualize that car. Do anything you can to create a strong emotional, strong energetic connection to your desired outcome, getting that car. So you would want to visualize the specific car, what color, what year, what model, what does it feel like to drive, what does it smell like on the inside. So to get a really intense visualization of it, and by doing that you'll get on the same plane of reality, the same frequency, the same vibration as the car you want. And so that's without, so, and then the life energy from that would be your own, right? Your own, or nature, or, you know, if you had some Orgonite, could come from that, or other people, right? A mastermind where you're all visualizing and passing life energy back and forth, something like that. So, and the sources of life energy are important. I want to talk about this for a little bit. So there's a few different sources you could get life energy from. There's your own innate life energy, which everyone creates. You're a living being. You are an Orgone generator. Right? You are a chi generator. You are a prana generator. You have your own innate life energy by virtue of being a living being. Your dog or your cat has its own orgone, right? Other thing, you know, in addition to living things, nature, there's a lot of orgone in nature, plants, flowing water. So you can pull from yourself. You can pull, and that's what most people use for their own manifestations, and that can work. A lot of the personal development, law of attraction methods and practices that are promoted are all about concentrating and harnessing your own life energy, right? Visualization is the example. If you get really good at, you know, they tell you to get really, really good at that. So if you got really good at visualization, generator aside, in essence, you would be really good at harnessing and concentrating your own life energy, right? You can really see that car that you want. You can really see yourself in it. That will definitely do something. It would take a lot of work and a lot of practice to get and a lot of consistency to get very, very good at it. But that would work, you know. There are people who are very good at manifesting things and they don't have a generator, right? But we think the generator provides huge benefits. You know, if you can do that without a generator will be exponential. If you can't do that, a generator will be exponential as well. You know, it's not. But you can harness your own life energy to manifest, right? So your own life energy is probably the most common source for most manifestations. Okay, the second source, you can get it from nature. Like I said, trees, flowing water, nature. People feel great when they walk through the woods, right? They go out, they go hiking, they get a lot of life energy from nature. That's part of what makes them feel better. That's why you see spiritual masters going out into the wilderness. Everyone from Buddhist masters to Jesus in the Bible to, you know, any number across cultures. You always see spiritual masters for a time going out into the wilderness. And part of the reason, and having deep experiences, and part of that we believe can be attributed to the high level of life energy in raw natural environments. Unfortunately, most of our environments in the modern world are not like that, right? So a lot of times you're in a city, there's pollution, there's you know, toxic energy, frequencies, all these things that they can kind of scramble your connection to source, right, to life energy. So raw, pristine, natural environments are best. You can pull from that. There's a question of how concentrated it would be. You know, walking through the forest, there's a lot there. It'd kind of be like a natural orgone accumulator, if you will. You know, it's giving off its own chi. There's organic and inorganic. It would kind of depend on the composition, but nature could pass its own innate life energy to you if you're walking through it. Question of how concentrated it would be, but that can occur. You can also get life energy from other people. And this is pretty intuitive if you think about it. You know, some people really like being in groups, and some of those groups, you know, if you've got good chemistry with other people, that's what that is. It's life energy being passed back and forth. So imagine a good team. Imagine a mastermind. You know, when you mastermind with people for manifestation, you're all coming together. You all want to manifest. You're all helping each other out. You know, providing positive reinforcement. But it's more than just, you know, positive thinking or being nice to other people. True life energy is being passed back and forth. If you're a musician, for example, when musicians or creative people in general get around each other, they can light each other on fire. They can light each other up. Personal development, for lack of a better word, conferences. Think of like a Tony Robbins event. You know, I use that example. I've actually been to a Tony Robbins event. I'll tell you about that. But everyone is really excited, and there's just tons of energy in the room. So so you can definitely get, because other people are creating their own life energy, you can get life energy from other people. And so the Tony Robbins event, use that as an example. It's pretty funny. So I went to a Tony Robbins event, and you know, they pump music in. Tony Robbins is jumping up and down on a trampoline, saying, giving big speeches, high energy speeches. People are cheering and clapping. There's all sorts of, you do a fire walk. You know, there's all sorts of that stuff occurring, and I think that the main reason for a lot of those conferences is just to create a state change in you. You know, maybe make you believe something was, break you of unhelpful patterns, right? Versus, you know, creating lasting, positive, permanent change. That's probably not occurring in one conference. Maybe it could, but it's giving you space so that that change can occur. That's I think is the goal, and they use it. And then what I talk about is that. You know, Tony Robbins, regardless of what you think of him, he's been in the news recently. He is clearly pretty good at manifesting, right? He came from relative poverty, definitely being broke, to having a huge net worth, you know, guru to the stars, all that stuff. So the question is, and I heard him say in an interview one time, they're like, Tony, why are you always in peak state? Why do you always feel so good? He was like, it's because I do so many conferences. What he means is that's kind of his job, is to be in peak state. But it could also mean that you know, he has access to hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of people's life energy on a yearly basis. Right? Anytime he goes to an event, he puts an event on, people are really excited to come, and then the whole event is set up to make them even more excited. Right? And he's the guy on stage up front, so they're just throwing energy at him. Everybody who's there is just, they're pumped to be him. They believe he can do things for them. So a ton of life energy is going at Tony Robbins all the time. And a guy like him who knows all the techniques that he knows, and has such deep experience, he can take all that and throw that into his own manifestations. And there's a lot of examples of that throughout history. Any spiritual leader who has devoted disciples probably doing something similar, consciously or unconsciously. In a lot of cases, probably more consciously than you may think. So you can definitely pull life energy from other people. So it's yourself, nature, other people, or we believe a generator. So we believe there are advantages to manifestation with an Orgone generator, Orgone-Powered manifestation. Every manifestation is powered by life energy, but Orgone Generator powered manifestation, we believe there are substantial advantages. Even if you're good at manifesting, there's a lot of advantages that we think. There are three main ones. Number one, a continuous, reliable flow of life energy. So, like we said, most manifestation training is based on harnessing and concentrating your own innate life energy and using it better, getting more out of yourself, right? But that requires kind of constant work. So take, I'll use Tony Robbins' example again. You know, when he wakes up in the morning, supposedly, when he wakes up in the morning, he goes and jumps in cold water, and then he jumps out and does a bunch of incantations and marching and pacing and visualization. So he's basically just pumping himself up. He's pumping his own life energy up. If you're just going to use your own life energy, it has to kind of be continually maintained. You need to pump yourself up. You need to get yourself in a peak state every day so that becomes more of your natural state. And obviously that's challenging. It would take good habits to do that. It would take a good life situation to do that. What's your life situation? Not everyone's is the same. So that's a challenge. Learning to harness and concentrate your own life energy. It takes a lot of work, and it can be inconsistent. Some days you just you can pump yourself up as much as you want, but you don't feel as good. And maybe that's in your control, and maybe it's not. So a generator provides a continuous, reliable flow. I can just turn this on, and we believe it's generating orgone, a continuous stream, to a lesser or greater extent. Right now I have 4 generators in my house. Unfortunately, they're not all mine, but I have a JU1000, a PFC 2000, a Performer, and a Rad 5. So if I flip the JU1000 on, it's in another room connected by a structural link. We believe the JU1000 is generating orgone, a continuous stream, because it's on, but it's generating less than the Rad 5. So being able to have access to a lot of concentrated life energy, just the flip of a button, is very, very useful. It basically, most people probably don't have access to that in themselves on a daily basis. So that's a huge advantage. The second advantage is that, you have to, if you're manifesting just using your own life energy, you have to, for instance, visualize. You have to engage in practices and habits to maintain the energetic connection with your desired outcome and draw it to you. So, if you want a car, for instance, to use that example again, how often do you have to visualize it? If you're just using your own life energy, how often do you have to visualize it? Do you need to do it all the time, every minute, once a day, twice a day? And people have different answers on that topic. But the point is, you have to continually do it until it manifests. What if you forget about it? What if you decide, you really wanted that car for a couple weeks, but then you forget, and you did all those things, but then for whatever reason you didn't make time to visualize, or you stopped wanting it as much, so you stopped visualizing as much. What happens to that manifestation? It dissipates, right? Because the energetic connection is not being maintained. In the case of an Orgone generator, by creating structural links, a generator really optimizes the use of structural links. By creating structural links and having, the concentrated life source, the concentrated source of life energy, it's set it and forget it. Set it and forget it is probably a little strong, and I'll talk about that more in part 3. But you don't have to continually hold the thing in your mind and use your own life energy. Just pump your own life energy toward it. You can set it once strongly and have that powered even when you're not thinking about it. That's obviously a massive advantage, especially if you want multiple things. Most people want more than just one thing. So what do they do then? If you're always thinking about the car, how are you going to get the house? So if you're always thinking about the job, how are you going to get the boy or girl that you want to fall in love with you, right? So how do you do that if you want a lot of things in a short amount of time? Do you have enough life energy, and can you just maintain that energetic connection long enough? The generator, it really makes using structural links, which everyone is doing all the time, a mental connection to something, visualization that's just a structural link. It optimizes that process and makes it stronger and more efficient, in that you can make the structural link once and have that manifestation powered even when you're not thinking about it anymore. I say in the article that that we talk about me and Nick, we will run operations on ourselves. Let's say attractiveness. Come on, right? Everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to be attractive. So, or anything, any operation. But we sometimes run operations on ourselves, and then we get results, and we're like, oh, we forgot we had that on, and we go and check, and yeah, we had that operation on, and the result just kind of showed up because it was continuing to work even after we forgot about it. So that's a huge advantage. Obviously, it's when you explain it, it makes perfect sense that it would be a huge advantage. And yeah, the third is what we already said. The third advantage is you can power multiple things simultaneously, and you can do that. Like I said, the best manifestors seem to manifest a lot of things simultaneously or in rapid succession. But with this, by optimizing the use of structural links, providing the constant stream of life force, it's much easier to power multiple manifestations simultaneously. So that's a huge advantage that we think, even over an experienced manifestor. Let's say that like we said, an experienced manifestor uses our machines. We believe that would be exponential. However, we believe that for someone who's not as experienced, they haven't put in the hours and the time and the money to get all that training. We believe that you could take a generator and have access to the same power as someone who's like that, or more, but have access to the power of an experienced manifestor, basically at the click of a button, and learning how to make structural links. Buy a machine and read 2 articles and make structural links carefully, and we believe that can put you years ahead of the game. That's been our personal experience, and that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. So I want to cut over and do some fun operation examples. So we talked about, I said that a lot of different traditions and rituals and practices throughout history probably have that, are probably based on the equation target plus trend plus life force. And so I want to do some fun examples of that. All right, so I said before that we have some fun examples of operations, fun examples of the equation, target plus trend plus life energy equals an operation. We think a lot of rituals and practices throughout history have had that basic structure, and once it's explained, you can kind of see it, and you start to see it everywhere. And so I want to use some fun examples. I've got a few of them. Let's see how many we can get through. To be clear, at the outset, we don't necessarily believe all these work or worked, but once you see it, you can kind of see the logic behind all of it and how it's all trying to do basically the same thing, which is manifest in this model. So remember, target plus trend plus life energy. The first, let's do voodoo doll. I want you to think about that. So with a voodoo doll, you have the doll, and I'll have a doll. I'll use my power booster here. So you have the voodoo doll, right? The voodoo doll is just a structural link to the target of wanting to poke someone is just a manifestation, right? So you want to, in creating action at a distance, right? You want to poke the doll and have them feel like they got poked. So you've got the voodoo doll. That's a target link to the target. And then you've got your trend link, your needle, in this case my pen, and you're poking the doll and you're wanting the other person to feel the poke. You're wanting the real person to feel the real poke. That's so the target, other person, target link, voodoo doll. The trend, feel a poke, trend link, poking them with the needle. And then the life energy in that situation would be provided by the person doing the poking. Right? And so they could do it themselves. They would have their own life energy, maybe nature if they're, kind of a shaman or someone out in nature, or if they have devoted followers, because people know that they're good at doing that sort of thing, they probably have some followers. and they could pull life energy from those people. It's kind of the, you know, it's kind of the craft in witchcraft, right? We think this is not witchcraft. We believe there's science behind this, but we believe that there could potentially be some science or scientific method behind magic previously. Like magic, as we'll keep explaining, is potentially a very practical approach. Whether it works or not, that's up for debate. And but the idea of a craft is that someone who's mastered a craft, they can show you how to do the basic actions, but they can't show you how to do it like they do it. Only they can do it in the way that they do it. So in the same way, someone who's got the voodoo doll, maybe they could make someone feel a poke because that's their craft and they've really mastered it. And what a craft is really just application of life energy. Art is the same way, right? I say in the end of part 2, there's no such thing as the effortless art of anything. If art is anything, it's applied life energy. So in the same way, a craft is the same way. So maybe someone who has really honed their craft, i.e. honed the application of their life energy for a voodoo doll, maybe they could make someone feel something, right? That would be the only way. Now, we don't want to give anyone who has a voodoo doll, we don't want to give them a generator, I'll tell you that. But that's the basic idea. You see the structure, the target plus trend plus life energy, you see the structure in it. So while it sounds funny, and it's a funny example, you can see the basic structure. Another example, and this is another fun one, let's go with, how about Aztec sacrifice? Let's say with the goal of creating rain so that there's a bountiful harvest. If you've ever seen the movie Apocalypto, which I've seen, it shows, it's really vivid and kind of raw about showing like human sacrifice. So Aztecs sacrificed thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. What they would do, and this is not, completely historically accurate, but I want to put it in this model again. So their goal is to get it to rain all over the fields. So what they do, they take up prisoners or slaves, they bring them on top of a pyramid, they cut them open, they pull out their heart, burn the heart, release it to the sky, and then throw the bodies off the pyramid. Pretty brutal, very, very brutal. And that movie is actually very brutal as well. So, but if you break it and you put it in this model, while it's pretty brutal, you can see the logic. So in that case, the target would be Aztec land, Aztec crops, right? That would be the target. The trend would be make it rain. We would need rain to have crops. And the life energy, you guessed it, is provided by the people, by the human sacrifice. That's what that is. And if you think about it, there's a ton of ritual, at least in the movie. There's a ton of ritual. There's they're painting themselves. There's group chanting. A lot of Aztecs are below the pyramid chanting. Think of that. That's just life energy being coordinated together. So there's chanting. There's a ton of ritual. Ritual, as I say in part 1 or part 2, is just it's a channel for life energy. So you've got all of that occurring, and then so they need the source of life energy, right? So they're providing their own. The people chanting, the priests, or whatever you want to call them, they are providing their own life energy to the operation. But to make it rain, you're going to need a lot, right? So they cut a human open in the center of their body. They take the heart, an essential part of the human, and they burn it. That's an ancient practice associated with transmutation. And then release it to the sky. They're high up because they need to get it to the sky. So you can really see how it fits into that target plus trend plus life energy. And unfortunately for the people who were sacrificed, they were the life energy. We released your life energy to the sky to get it to rain. Now, whether it worked or not, who knows? They did it a lot, and I'm sure there are other sociological reasons they did it, but you can see the brutal logic behind it. Ancient peoples, in a lot of cases, much more tied into reality in a lot of ways, and you can see that reflected in kind of cold, basic, brutal logic. So we got voodoo doll, we've got Aztec sacrifice. Let's do another one. Prayer. Think about that. I think a lot of people pray in a lot of forms, and in that case, right, whoever you're praying for, this is pretty easy, right? If you're praying for a result for yourself, well, you're the target, and you are praying, and then your life energy is either going to be your own. It's kind of just a basic manifestation, or if you're praying to a deity, you are potentially drawing life energy from, let's say you go to a religious service. Okay, well, you have access to other people's life energy. In addition, for more established religions or groups, the entity itself, the church for Christians, or just the group, the corporal, the non-physical entity, that the thing, right, the movement has its own life energy, because you've got a lot of humans who are sending their life energy to that thing by thinking about it, by praying, by it can truly take on a life of its own. And so if you follow a certain religion, you might have access to life energy built up in that religion, in addition to your own. So you get the people at religious service, you have your own life energy, so that's you, that's other people, and then you can also potentially pull life energy from the belief system, from the entity of the religious group, the non-physical thing, could potentially pull life energy from that. And it's possible, if a deity actually exists, whatever it actually is, it's possible that you could get life energy from that as well. So prayer is another example. Target plus trend plus life energy. The real question is, where's the life energy coming from? Is it coming from the target, or is it coming from the operator, or is it coming from these other places? So prayer is a good example of this equation as well. And just to stay on kind of a religious thing, to use two Catholic examples, exorcism and communion. Both of those are operations that can be fit into where they actually work, whether there's anything to exercise, or whether it works. Both those fit into this framework of target plus trend plus life energy very well. In the case of, I one time, the reason I mentioned exorcism is I read something by a priest one time who talked about, someone asked him, why should someone come to you for an exorcism? Why not go to just a traveling person who performs exorcism? And the priest said something interesting. He said, you should come to us, you should come to the Catholic Church for that, because we have doctrine. We have 500-year-old ritual and doctrine, and that works better than just somebody who can just do it themselves. So you should come to us. What he's really saying is, we have access to, at least what he's saying is, we have access to a lot of life energy. We've got ritual ourselves. It's practical. It's been worked out over 500 years, and we've got the weight of the Catholic Church, which has been around for a long time, had a lot of life energy sent to it. We've got that, so you should come to us because we've got a process. And that sort of that response made sense in the context of this format. So I thought that was interesting to hear, and it, like I said, it makes sense. They've got, maybe they can create stronger target links. Maybe they can create stronger trend links. Maybe they just have a lot more life energy to draw from. But I thought it was an interesting answer, and I heard the answer after I already knew about this format. That's why I mentioned it. Communion, Catholic communion, if you know anything about that. I'm not Catholic. I don't actually know that much about it per se, but I know this thing. So a lot of times, you have turn water into wine. that's sort of an operation there, or wine is supposed to transmute into the blood of Jesus, right? And in Catholics, there was this whole dispute, I think a long time ago, where does the wine actually turn into the blood, or does it not? Or is it just representative? That's an operation, right? The target would be the wine, the trend would be turning into the blood, right? So it's just another example. Now let's use a really modern example. And this, I remember telling this to someone, and it really, really blew their minds. A sports game. Sports are huge in our societies, obviously, and a sports game is a really good example of this equation: target plus trend plus life energy. There's a ton of life energy thrown at sports in our society. So if you think about fans in let's say a football match. So you got one side's fans on one side of the stadium, the other side on the other side. You have cheering, lots of group cheering. They're all wearing the same colors. Each fans want their team to score, right? So target, your team, trend, score points, life energy provided by the players, provided by the fans themselves. That's just an easy example of this equation at work in a metaphysical environment, right? Or a non-manifestation. I mean, it is a manifestation. It's a group manifestation. Having your team score the winning goal is a group manifestation. And cheering can really help. And it's not just psychological. Life energy is being thrown at the team, at your team. Everybody is wanting the same thing. So that's just another example of an operation. Like I said, you can look around the world, look in your own life, and you can see this structure everywhere. It's very illuminating. So that's getting through the operations examples. Let's talk about structural links. So we give examples at the end of the article. And the reason we did this was just to show how many you can use, how many different types of structural links you can use, and how kind of flexible our generators are. I mentioned a voodoo doll. Like, if you did a voodoo doll and threw it in the generator, I don't know what would happen. But they're very flexible, and intentionally so. Like, Carl has a lot of experience with a lot of different traditions, so he wanted to make something that could accommodate a lot of different things. So going down, you need a target link and you need a trend link, right? Target link for yourself we've already talked about, but it could be any number of things. It could be a written note, a recent photograph, a radionic rate. If I imagine the target, whether it's myself or someone else, and I close my eyes and I imagine them, and then I twist the dial until it sticks. That's what a radionic rate is for a target, right? You see the light starting to blink. And if you look down on some of our generators with, for instance, the RAD5, it has target. This set of dials right here says target, and then alt target and trend. And trend environment. These labels that I'm not sure if you can see, they're not important. You could use any dial for anything. I use this one for target. That would work fine. But this is built with the idea of being able to program a target and a trend, or multiple targets, multiple trends into the device, in addition to other structural links. So you can have a structural link, a target link in there, and then also do it with a dial. And that's what we're going to cover in part 3, stuff like that. But that would just be, that's a radionic rate. That's an example of that. So I would say just use what's easy for your own structural links. Like I said, I use a lot of written intentions. I use some other methods as well, which we'll talk about, but mostly written intentions. I don't have a printer, for example, so I can't print a lot of stuff off. This is actually where the software is really good, and we'll talk about that in another video. I'm actually going to do a video fairly soon going through the software in depth, and showing how to use it, because it really is helpful, because I can just take pictures of something and keep it on my computer, and the software will run it. So otherwise you end up with a ton of structural links. I'll show you how many. This is just an example. So we say a lot of times that once you start using an Orgone generator for everything, You never have enough. This is an example of, this is a bunch of structural links. A lot of note cards, and I've got even more. So, when you create a lot of structural links, you don't always continue to use them. It's for different trends, different operations. So yeah, that's another place where the software is better. You can just keep it on a computer. But I would say just use what's easy, use what works. It needs to be good, but use what works. Pictures are good, written intentions are good, identical, like I said, DNA if you can get it. And yeah, it could be religion specific or ritual specific. It could be a lot of stuff. And the trend link examples kind of get into a lot more of that. A vision board is an excellent example of trend links, right? So people make vision boards, and in their vision boards they put, they really like modern houses, so they get a bunch of pictures of modern houses. They really like certain sports cars or something, so they get sports cars. Vacations in the Maldives, So a vision board is really a bunch of trend links where you're kind of putting together in one place the life that you want, that you're trying to draw to you, right? So in that case, you're the target. Your whole vision board, everything on your vision board is a trend, and you're trying to draw that to you, right? So, we'd probably need a bigger ring for most people's vision board, but all those things can be energized. You could take your vision board and energize it with a generator. So, just put it on top, put it in front of the output tube. Kind of depends on, how big those operations are. If you want like a really, really nice, if you want a castle or something, it might be a pretty big operation, but maybe not. So there's a lot of different things you can use. Frequencies themselves. If you see this generator, what I've got on this is I've got the hertz frequencies turned all the way up, but I could tune this to say 432 hertz, 7.83 hertz, and that would function as a trend link as well, right? You would color the Orgone output, and we'll talk more about that. Tattoos are a trend link. We should actually do a post on that. People get tattoos of family or of meaningful statements or